I'm Nova Han. I'm a creative director for music festivals, stage shows, concerts, and immersive experiences around the world. My work has been seen by hundreds of thousands at festivals like Coachella, Electric Forest, Burning Man, and Firefly. I've worked with artists like Deadmau5, Bass Nectar, and the String Cheese Incident. My job has me searching the globe to discover the industry's best artists in installations, performance, movement, set design, costumes, and emerging technologies to create some of the world's greatest live entertainment experiences. Audiences see the awe-inspiring spectacle of the final product, but they have no idea what it takes to get there. We the Creators explores the lives of the artists behind the magic, what drives them to do what they do, the sacrifices they've made, and the pain they've overcome to make art at any cost. Behind every great artist is an even greater story. This is We the Creators. Hey, and welcome to another We the Creators, where our mission is to showcase the incredible artists in immersive arts and the epic journeys they took to get there. So today we're with my friend Fab Five Freddy. Fab is a legend, and that's it. That's all I have to say. I'm just kidding. There's so much more. It's almost too much. He is a visual artist, a filmmaker, a public speaker, a producer, a philanthropist. He's known he's one of America's hip hop pioneers, having been the first to host the groundbreaking show Yo! MTV Raps, and having been immortalized by Blondie's song Rapture for having his finger on the pulse of the birthing street art and hip hop scene in Brooklyn. He was creating art alongside legends like Basquiat and Keith Haring, being credited as one of the architects for the street art movement as we know it today. His films have been equally pivotal in bringing hip hop culture to the mainstream through works like Wild Style and countless music videos. His current works include directing and producing the Netflix film Grass is Greener, and he currently serves on the board of Burning Man. As I said, the man is a legend, and I am beyond thrilled to be speaking with my buddy today. This is Fab Five Freddy. What's up?
Hi Nova, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. Nice to see you.
Yes, so great to see you. I feel like you're looking very monochromatic right now with like your white hat, your white and black shirt, your white beard. It's a good look.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, this is baby blue, but it's all good.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all
like
good.
the red or the blue and gold dress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right on.
Colors looks good. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Yeah. So I was reminiscing that the last time that I saw you was last year when you were premiering your Netflix film Grass is Greener.
Yes.
Which was, it was such a poignant piece on the way marijuana has influenced our music and culture, but also how this war on drugs was really just targeted to criminalize Black and Brown communities specifically. And it was just like this really wonderful, eye-opening expose on these age-old tactics of how law and legislation has been designed to keep people of color repressed.
Yes.
Right. And now I find like we're finding ourselves in this really intense and heartbreaking yet beautiful time of this like deep awakening and deep reckoning, where I feel like some of these like good non-racist white people are finally seeing the disparity of what it means to exist as a Black person in this country.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so fucking cool. So I guess like for you, having been alive for kind of some of these really pivotal moments of lifting into Black empowerment, I'd love to just know what your take is on what's happening today. And if there's something about today's civil war that just feels different to you.
Yeah, I guess it's really an amazing major, in every sense of the word, historical turning point moment in America for this country, for everybody that has seen these images that have sparked this uprising, this movement at this moment. It's been really quite amazing. I guess the biggest part is to see the diverse look at the people that have taken to the streets across the country and around the world. It's been some of everybody that lives on the planet coming together to say, no, hell no, no justice, no peace, Black Lives Matter, and all the other things that people have been shouting, marching, and demanding people deal with. And it's been really quite special that we just hope there's some significant and more substantive change is what we're really hoping. And basically we'll continue this until hopefully these things happen. So it's a tumultuous period. It's amazing on so many levels, but between people just trying to stay alive, but people risking their lives to go to the streets to protest is just a reflection of how serious a time this is.
Yeah, and it's really been, I mean, and like it's been both heartbreaking and uplifting, right? At the same time, I've been watching a lot of the footage of what's been going down in New York City Hall, and like seeing people of all different colors like embrace each other, like arm in arm, like really trying to keep each other safe from police brutality. It's like it's the epitome of both heartbreaking to even see police brutality happen in that way, but also to see, you know, true brothers and sisters come out in support of one another that may not have the plight of being a Black person in this country, but truly they're fighting as if it was their own life on the line. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been really heartening to see that, to see the face of it, the look of it, to feel the heartbeat of it, if you will. That means the individuals that are just like, I'm not taking it anymore, and we're going to stand and fight. You know, and the younger ones, when you think about it, like 30 and under, for most of their lives, Obama was the president, and it was a glimmer of the more optimum design, or the more, you know, living up to these ideals after all the history, if you know it. And so, you know, the way when Obama got elected, the way there were like just celebrations in the streets throughout New York, for one, people literally came to the streets, like really pleased to see this moment, which I think for people of color, it was significant. I mean, not to just delve that deeply into the politics, but I think just the optics were great in a White House, if you will, beautifully and literally, to have that kind of color and that kind of flavor and that kind of attempt at change. I mean, healthcare, no one can deny. I mean, obviously, politics is a vicious game, but Obamacare, which this administration slowly tries to dismantle while people are dying at insane numbers and going through a pandemic, you would try to unravel this now. This is why we have to vote in November. That's what we want, this momentum to continue for the next 3 months. And I'm pretty sure it will, because people are pissed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, thank you for sharing your thoughts and opinions on Instagram or whatever, but that ain't going to move legislation. Like, you actually got to get out there and fucking vote. Like I don't care if you put a black tile on your Instagram, you know, like that ain't doing shit until you vote.
Right. That's not doing something, but still it's interesting to see that people can mobilize and do positive things and move on the information when people just feel that moment and feel that time. So it's amazing because, you know, I think the thing is, in the movements that happened previously in previous decades and back 40, 30, 50, 60 years ago, they were kind of somewhat leaders of different organizations and movements that kind of were like, okay, we're marching this way, or we're going to demonstrate here. And, you know, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you know, Black Panthers, anti-war people. But this is sort of there's no real figurehead, but there is a reason and a movement and a motivation that is just amazing to see. So
totally. Well, that's what I think is so cool and so different about what's happening now, is that is that we are not standing behind a figurehead, like you said, like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr. And so now this movement is really about a people. And it's kind of like, you know, a school of fish against a shark. What it requires is coordination and communication and working together, right? Because we're working as a movement. That said, like kind of going back to some of your works and stuff that you've done, like you've really played just such a pivotal role in introducing modern day Black culture into the mainstream through art, introducing them to, you know, hip hop music, film. And what you've done is I feel like you've always brought this celebration of the underground movement that has made like epic strides in being a part of American identity today. Like people, you know, take so much pride of the music that's being brought out of like Black art, Black culture, the music, the films. So like arts has been such a big role in elevating, I think, Black identity. And what do you see the role of the arts playing in today's revolution?
I've seen a lot of amazing paintings of George Floyd's face on protest signs. Mm-hmm. One of my buddies is a painter. He's a filmmaker and he's also a painter. And we were talking just as the demonstrations were really heating up a few days after George Floyd's tragic murder, tragic lynching. And he says, look, man, I'm painting this thing and I'm going to take it out to one of the protests downtown Brooklyn by the Barclays Center. And he showed it to me and I was like, man, that looks so amazing. Wow, like I want to own a piece like that. And so then I noticed in demonstrations, I saw numerous people that had painted their own George Floyd's. And his image immediately has become like iconic in the most uplifting yet saddest way, unfortunately, because he should be alive right now, taking care of his family and his kids and stuff. But his face has just been an example, and the murals that street artists have painted across the country we've seen. And it's, you know, what happens in moments, you know, the whole idea of what I kind of helped to stir up, the whole street art movement, which grew out of graffiti, which was a thing that developed in New York City going way back through the 70s into the 80s, just this wild teenage activity where we just wanted to paint our names all over any and everything. That turned itself into a form of creative expression, a form of painting, a form of using those tools. And then that evolved into an even broader way of expressing yourself on the street called street art. But at the core of that is a real rebellious nature. A lot of people dive in because it's a shortcut to become a big time artist. So they see that as a strategic move. There's plenty of those people out there, but at the core of it, there's a rebellious rebel nature in expression, which a lot of people of color or a lot of poorer peoples as well were denied the ability to express themselves, to basically, it really started really simple, just stepping up and saying, hey, I'm here. You know, and you're going to know who I am, whether you like it or not. And hip hop music and stuff comes from that same simple space. The fact that it has become the world's most dominant form of music, streamed and downloaded all over, is a reflection of the fact that people in other places have said, hey, I can do this too. So as it relates to this movement, a lot of the voice and the imagery, there's been a lot of inspired paintings that have happened all over the place. In fact, on my Instagram, which you can go and check, which is my name, Fab5Freddy, that's the number 5, Fab5Freddy. Somebody in the Netherlands painted a really gigantic Black Lives Matter mural on the street, but it's inspired by the logo of a film called WeHOWL Style, which was hip hop's first movie that I took part in, was produced and did all the music and was one of the stars. So well over 30 years ago. But
I love that. And I love how global the movement has become. Yes, and also just like how kind of pivotal those art pieces are. Like culture is defined by the art that we create, the stories that we tell. Correct. You know. So having that as a kind of a piece that people really come back to when they want to celebrate Black culture, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I'd just like to point out, periods of time are often referenced by schools or movements in art and music, from the Renaissance era to the Jazz age, the rock and roll 60s, if you will. Hip hop, because the roots are so deep, it's been around now for 40 plus years, but it's still a real viable, like, once again, I'm not trying to say like we're in the hip hop era, which we are, but I'm not trying to give it that name because it's been for so long. But it's just amazing to think about the fact that periods of time are reflected back and given, looked at in connection to works, schools of art. Pretty interesting.
That's an interesting thing that I hadn't really considered before, but you're right in the sense that, where we have had like our Renaissance era or our Fauve era, or that it really is defined by the way that people are expressing themselves in that moment.
Completely.
Which is comes out in the form of art.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I hadn't really thought about that. So, I guess just moving on to all the other things that you're doing, because you're doing so many things. I mean, between all the films that you're producing and
trying to keep from being bored here, so I keep busy.
I know. Actually, I'm loving that we're talking to you from your living room, because I remember when I visited you, I was just like, fuck, this man keeps a bunch of books around his house, and there they are. like you are just a sponge for knowledge and creativity, and I love that about you. And actually, like, I guess while we're on that, like, what do you think keeps you on the forefront of what's unfolding culturally? Because that's, in some ways, that's like been such your signature. You've always really just been like right at that crest wave, when things were bubbling up, when new waves were emerging. You've always been there right at the beginning, and even now, it's like you haven't, like, it's, even now, like you somehow stay so close to that. No, does it, regardless of the stature or the age or not growing up in a digital era, somehow you still are always at that forefront. Like, what do you think keeps you at the cusp there?
That's a good question. And I will definitely give all the credit to the people that made me. My parents, who are looking down, smiling, going, "That's right, boy, you better tell them where it comes from." But yeah, no, my mother and father were really super hip people. They actually met way back in the 50s in the jazz scene. My dad grew up close friends with Max Roach, who was my godfather. He was like Max Roach to the drums is what Charlie Parker was to the sax.
Wow.
Gillespie, Miles Davis was trumpet. Max was in that crew that began this new kind of jazz called bebop. He was like a big hero to me, loved everything I was doing. We actually did some hip hop things together very early on. I collaborated with him. You can go on YouTube and see a little piece of a performance. But anyway, that kind of like awareness of culture was what my dad and all of his friends were, because bebop, when it became the like dominant music or the prominent cutting edge form of music in America, like I guess that happened in the late 40s through the 50s, my dad was like immersed in that. So as a kid growing up, I got exposed to a lot of that. Then as I got older and began to figure out things that I wanted to do as a teen and whatever, I began to realize I had learned a lot of things from my dad and his very hip, very cool, very aware friends that were always meeting at my house. In fact, if you guys haven't seen my film Grass is Greener, in the beginning, I talk about some of my family background and how that inspired me. In fact, as a teenager, I bought a record, looking through a record store one day back in the 70s, and it was called Reefer Songs. And it was all these songs about cannabis and sung by prominent jazz artists. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? I brought this album, came home, played it for my dad and his friends. They got a big hoot out of it, but they knew that there were many songs made about cannabis then, because my dad was also a cannabis aficionado, as were his friends. And so they laughed and they translated some of the slang that had totally went away, but they told some stories that I was like, blew my mind, that in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, guys were making songs about cannabis. So that I remembered. And then when the idea to make Grasses Greener came, I realized, wait, it's a cool way to tell this story by looking also at America's music, which begins with jazz. Actually, in New Orleans, where jazz is born, cannabis was used, and the first kind of outcries because those Black people were smoking cannabis in New Orleans, Louisiana, that began the racial motivation to attack the plant, because cannabis was also bringing different peoples together. Black folks, white folks want to hear this new music. Hey, pass that joint over here was pretty much what happened. And racists didn't want to see people coming together. So that's a connection to how, I mean, I took that from how I got to just be able to stay on top of things. It just was always something that went on, I think, in my house and around the people I was around. And then it rubbed off on me in terms of the cultures that I got involved in, that I helped, you know, push into the mainstream, so to speak, or whatever that is, and as an artist myself. And then I guess I've always been attracted to similar people, especially really revolutionary, cutting edge creatives. As you yourself know, which is how we met and became friends, there's a similar thing that you meet, that you find, you learn about when you meet these other interesting creatives, which is largely what I do, which are typically open-minded people to new expressive ideas and against the repressive ideas that too many of us have lived under. So that's connects to that I guess that's a long ass answer.
Yeah, no worries. It was a fascinating just detour into history. So I appreciate that.
I guess what it is for me, a lot of it, because I'm embarking now, I'm setting the stage to work on my memoir. And I'm reflective, as I always am, about where these things came from. Because once again, no college, filmmaking, love of art, all of these things, I've never been afraid to like pick these things up and dive into them seriously, because my dad and his friends, that's what they did. And so that's what I'm doing, and looking to lay all this out for people to see this whole story, like how this kid from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, makes his way into the kind of zeitgeist of pop culture, so to speak.
Oh my gosh! And you're still doing it now. You're still doing it now. You're sitting on the board of Burning Man, which is just right. It's the poster child for this.
Yeah, as you know, we both have been to Burning Man a bunch of times, and I love it. And I'm kind of the tip of an iceberg of more diverse people from my community finding out about it, coming to the burn, and being involved now, which just happened. I just became a board member at the beginning of the year. We now have this most major crisis that Burning Man has ever dealt with, canceling the burn, but also reinventing, if you will, taking control of the narrative, figuring out how to be virtual, something that you know quite a bit about, and finding these other platforms that exist. Because for those who don't know, a lot of burners are some of the key and most significant people in tech, creating some of these innovative things that are a big part of our lives now. These people burn, and now they're coming to the table to help create innovative things for us to do, because we won't be going out to Black Rock City at the end of August. But we're looking to get the messaging right. Like, a lot of people don't understand these things. I'm sure you do, of course, that Burning Man has something under the umbrella called Burners Without Borders that fly around the world to help people in catastrophe, disaster situations. And there's satellite burns in multiple countries around the world where people have gotten that magic and really want to keep that spirit going. And so we're looking to work now to clarify. We just launched a new site called Kindling, which is something in adjacent, kindling, burning, which is kind of new and exciting. So to be on these Zoom board meeting calls with all these amazing, smart people, really putting their radical self-reliance and all those 10 principles to work, and it's been really fun.
Yeah. So exactly. So what are some of the conversations that you, if you can share, what are some of the conversations that you are having in the board right now, and moving this experience to digital? Because how do you comply to the 10 principles of like you said, like radical self-reliance or, civic responsibility, radical inclusion? Like, is it still Burning Man if you're in a digital form and you can't quite implement those things? Or is the user experience so much just about consumption?
Yeah, well, no. Well, it's not going to be just about consumption. So the principles, of course, as the people that are doing these things, that are burners, that understand, have to think. It's just like when you make art or sculptures, or the amazing art that is brought out to the playa, you have to understand that there's certain things about the art, like people should be able to interact with it. That's like a mandate, that the art should have a way that people could engage with it in a significant way. Digitally, there's only so many things we can do, but it's important to get those ideas out there and for the creators to be aware of those principles, and then to cleverly figure out, well, how can I message this within this virtual, whatever it is that I'm making? So just being mindful and aware of that is important. So it's going to be fascinating with the various things that are coming to the table, because there's so many creatives in the Burning Man community. The org at first was thinking about trying to lead the way, but the main focus of the org is to keep the lights on, because there's a crisis going on, because the majority of the ticket money as burners out there, if any are listening or watching, have been returned to them. And with that money, that's how the organization runs. That's the fuel in the car. So we're looking now for alternative sources of fuel, which the response has been amazing to keep this going, because we're not even clear, none of us, if we'll be able to do these things that we all want to do in 2021, just based on the craziness.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you, was because we're not even sure if we can do this next year. Correct. Like, are you concerned as a board member of Burning Man that might collapse the way that we know of Burning Man?
I want to tell everybody that I was mortified, because I've never really been on a board. This is a huge organization. As you know, 80,000 come to Burning Man, and is an amazing organization that literally builds a city. Many mayors across the country send teams to see how ingenious the creation of Burning Man is in Black Rock City. So that's just a kind of the brain trust that's involved. And that brain trust right now is, how do we do better? How do we keep these lights on, but not just keep them on? How do we make these lights brighter? How do we make sure that people understand a lot better what this is going forward? And how do we sustain ourselves until 2022? Because we now see that there's people in the country that are not doing the right things in different areas of the country for just reasons of insanity. So we have to keep steady, figure out how to balance all these things out. So a lot of the conversations are about numbers. I'm on the creative side of it all, of course, looking to press in with that and come to anything I can do to help. So that's
what do you think, just on the creative aspect of things, what do you think that the digital versions of Burning Man could offer that would be more substantial, better served in the digital version than the real life version?
I think it's overall going to serve as, if you are a burner and you understand the culture and what happens, then you'll be like, wow, hopefully you'll be pleased. But I'm even more so thinking about those that are curious about Burning Man and haven't gotten a complete picture. Hopefully they'll be able to get a better snapshot and a look at what makes it so special, because it's not easy to figure out unless you've got oftentimes a friend who's been that can say, let me tell you all about it, and then go into that deep dive of an explanation that takes you there. So that's the thing that I think is happening, and we're working now to just make it better as we also navigate a crisis.
Oh, and you got some lighting on you. Woo, nice.
Yeah, I noticed it's getting really dark in New York here. It's like, looks like the sky's about to
Yeah.
open up. So I looked at them and I said, hey, there we go.
Yeah. What is the vibe out there right now? Because it's just like, just to be in the epicenter of COVID and all of the riots, and you've been there your whole life. What's it feel like right now?
Amazing, transformative. It's a transformative time. And, having ventured out into Manhattan, a lot of it has looked like the set of I Am Legend. That's what us New Yorkers have been saying. It looks like that movie where nobody's in New York City. It's been that for the last several months. Everything closed down. It's insane. But at the same time, New York has been, and like many cities, has been mallified. It's like this increasing capitalistic thing to turn everything into a mall with good lighting and like too perfect everywhere.
Yeah.
All of us, everybody can figure out how to do this. And it's kind of lame because along with that, the prices of everything have gone beyond any kind of creative person like I was way a long time ago when I mixed with all these other creatives, that you could afford to live here. It's really difficult, as it is in a lot of big cities now. So it was just frustrating seeing some of what was happening because it was happening at such an accelerated rate. The prices were going through the roof. Most artists that I know not able to afford to really live and work in Manhattan because it got so overly expensive. So, people went to Brooklyn, the Bushwick, and these areas, the same thing began to happen. So that frustration was like, really, man, what can you do? Everybody loves all this legendary folklore and all these great stories of all these things that happen, some of which I took part in, but it's a completely different city. It could very well be in the process of turning into something different right now. Mm-hmm. We don't know yet because a lot of people are leaving. They may not be coming back. Wealthy folks that can escape very easily.
Right.
So we're going to see, but it's a very different dynamic right now. It's still got a very dystopian edge. I mean, a lot of the stores have not opened, but restaurants now can do outside seating and even take up some of the parking space in front. So that's exciting when you drive around to see, like, that's a pretty safe place to be outside if you want to do that, not too close to too many people. So that's happened all over the city. But when you go through a lot of places that were major shopping areas, they're still boarded up. And it's very, very interesting and strange to see Soho, this area, Madison Avenue, 34th Street, a lot of these big shopping areas with plywood covering up as if a big storm's coming. But I'm really excited about creatives. After the first couple of months of just their heads spinning, I've gotten motivated or kind of getting a clearer picture on what the world's going to be like, which is very different. Which if you're like really a fearless creative person, then God damn it, go at it. And let's go at it hard, which is really an exciting time, especially because it's change is happening. So I don't know. I'm fired up about that, inspired what other creatives are talking about, other things they're doing. I mean, I've really been inspired to see all the DJs just online. Like a lot of this music stuff that I like, hip hop in particular, started with DJs. That was the beginning of it all. And then the rapper became the big thing. And a lot of people forgot about the DJ. And so online, Instagram, Twitch, all these DJs have been emerging that I've been getting to watch like I haven't done in so long because all the cool clubs have been gone. And so that's been a big treat. And I
think actually I just realized that you and I both know this girl, DJ Rashida, out here.
Yes.
Out here, I just saw that the other day and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. She coming to a lot of parties in New York in the early 2000s. And then she was really close with Prince, as I know you know. And then she would hit me up when Prince was the legendary things Prince would do if you guys were not blessed to take part, is he would give these private little parties, usually after he had given a big concert. And he'd come and give a private set starting at 1 or 2 in the morning. And for, 50, 100, 200 people in a club. And Rashida would hit me up. Yo, Prince is going to be at such and such a club downtown. Got you on the list.
That sounds fucking legend. I would have loved that. I would have loved that.
I was blessed to take part in a couple of those Prince special moments.
Well, we're almost out of time. Maybe just one more question. And I guess like in this time, right, I think that crisis always opens up an opportunity for real deep growth. Wow. Is there any kind of advice or things that you're really excited about for what's possible in this time?
Well, speaking of deep growth, this hair on my face grew. So that's my growth contribution. It was literally, so many people were saying, like, just being in this house so much, my home in Harlem, it was like, man, people are like, I don't even know what day it is. I'm like, dude, me either. So what happened was literally 4, 5, 6 days had gone by and I literally had not looked at myself in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror one day and I'm like, oh man.
It looks fucking sharp. I really like this. I hadn't seen you with a white beard before and I think it looks fucking fly.
Brand new. And so it grew just like that because everything changed in such a radical way. And then some friends, I was FaceTiming with a couple of friends. I'm like, I'm not running up to shave just to FaceTime. And the response was overwhelmingly positive that this hair is on my face. So I decided, oh man, I got blessed with a new look. And so that growth that I've experienced is on my face. You all can see, I'm very pleased with it, you know, and that's how you take that lemon and turn it into lemonade, baby. And it's sweet over here too, in case you want to know. That's what
yes, they tell me. Silver fox in it over there.
Silver fox over here, baby, in full effect. God damn it! Yeah,
that's awesome. Right on.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining and speaking with us today, for dropping all your knowledge, and just you are always a wealth of information. I love speaking to you and seeing you.
Thanks, Nova. It's so good talking to you and seeing you as well. It's been a long time, and you know, I'm here for you.
Oh, thank you. Same. Well, for everyone else watching this now or later, you too can be part of our quest to really support the arts at this time and keep creativity alive by following the YouTube channel, seeing what Burning Man's up to, following Fab5 on his Instagram, which is Fab5 like the number Freddy, and subscribing to YouTube, our WeHOWL channel. Every little bit helps. So we appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. So until then,
see you.
Thank you.
Please.
Yeah. Have a great one. Stay safe, be kind, and love boldly, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.